case it does not actually go to the government, what would happen is that the process to get that asset distributed would be a little bit more complex and time consuming. And it may result in unnecessary hardship and worry for your family because, I mean, we build all the wealth within our lifetime and we did not effectively plan what would happen when we die. So there's a formula that we have in Jamaica that once you die, your assets will be distributed, and this would go directly to the Administrator General of Jamaica because they would be the government entity that would deal with persons that die and do not leave a will. So the formula that they normally use is, just to give everybody an idea of what would happen. So if you die without leaving a will, you die intestate, and that means you do not have a will. So first, it's usually done by an hierarchy. So the relationship, you would have your spouse, your children, and your parents. So the half goes to your spouse and half to the children. Then, let's say your parents are not alive. It will go to your spouse. Let's say you're married, but you do not have any parents. Your parents are not alive. Then you will go to your spouse, and some would go to your children. Let's say you're not married at the time. You would go to your parents, and you do not have any children. Let's say you do not have any. So as I'm saying, it's a system that it would go through. So if you do not have a spouse, you do not have children, and your parents aren't alive, it will go to your next, I'd say your next relatives that are alive, your surviving relatives. So if you have any brothers and sisters, and it's actually brothers and sisters of the whole blood first, and then if there are no brothers and sisters of the whole blood, then it goes to the brothers and sisters of the half blood. And if there is no brothers and sisters of any of those blood, it will go to the grandparents or the uncles or the aunts. And if there is no surviving relatives, then it would unfortunately go back to the government, the crown. So these are essentially some components or some things that you need to know about a will. Yeah, essentially some things that you need to know about a will. So in conclusion, estate planning is less about how much wealth you have. You do not have to be rich to create a will. You do not have to be rich to effectively plan for what would happen upon your death. As I said, as long as you are over the age of 18 and you are in sound mind, you can create a will. So if you're 18 and you have a car in your name, you can actually create a will and say, oh, I want to leave the car to my mother upon my death. And you'd have to go through the process to sign and get 2 witnesses for that will. So as I'm saying, it's not something you do not have to have a lot of assets to create a will. It's something simple, and it's something that you're doing to prevent the necessary hardship on your family once you transition into the next life. So what you're going to do is between you and God. So you should put it in writing, and you should effectively make the necessary preparations. So that is it for my presentation about some things that you need to know about estate planning and will creation. All right, so at this moment, I'll take any questions that you may have.
I'll go with the first question. I'm not sure if I missed something, but can I just use anybody to be my executor?
Your executor, right? So you can use anyone that you want to be an executor. It can be a family friend, as I said. It can be a family friend, or it can be an attorney. You can also put it in an attorney because they would have a firm where they can safely keep the will upon your death, as well as if you want someone you know that is responsible. It doesn't necessarily have to be family, but somebody that you know will be responsible. And as I said, it's generally two. It's recommended that you do 2 persons to be executor.
Okay, so my question is, you made mention before that once you have a will, I think, right?
Yeah.
And you die, if you have debts, then the debts are taken care of first.
Right.
But then we hear otherwise to say that once you have a debt, the debt dies with you. So can you explain your statement?
Generally, some debts may have insurance with it. So some loans, you may have to take an insurance on it. So that insurance would cover the amount upon your debt. But there are some loans that you may have that may not have an insurance component to it. So it would have to be covered by your estate upon your debt.
As long as they are aware of it.
Repeat?
As long as they are aware of it.
As long as they are aware of it.
Yes.
So that is one of the responsibilities of the executor as well. They have to send or they have to look for any creditors that the testator would have at the time. So that is one of their duties. They should go out and see, did this person have a car loan? Is it covered? Or did this person have a mortgage? Is it covered? So they're actually supposed to seek out the creditors for that.
That is why I would advise that your executor would be maybe a friend or a relative, someone who knows your inside out.
Right. So it would be good if you trust that person enough. So it's somebody that you trust enough to deal with that upon your death.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi.
My question is, suppose the liability exceed the assets, how would you explain that?
All right. So if your liabilities exceed your assets, so I mean your assets that you have in your life that you can't cover,
Right.
whatever debts you may have. Well, at the end of as I said, the executor, they would have to be in conversation with your creditors or with your debtors. So I guess they would come to some agreement as to say, this is all the money that we have in the estate. We only have 10 million, but we know that the liabilities is 20 million. So essentially, the assets for that estate, it would essentially be used to cover whatever it can be for the debt. And maybe there could be some write-off for some of the loans or some of the debts that the person would have.
And suppose some of the creditors does not want a write-off, want to do a write-off.
Well, I'm not essentially sure what would happen upon that, but it would be some agreement they would have to come with the executor, because there would be no other person there to cover the liabilities for that estate. So most times, more than not, they would write off the loan. They would write it off because they would not be getting back any funds from that. And as I said, some loans have an insurance component to it. So if it have an insurance component to it, that would cover the loan or cover the life of the loan essentially.
Okay, understand. A second question. Suppose I die and I leave my estate to somebody. When I write my will, I said I would like this to happen and that to happen. Is it by law that it must have to happen?
Yes, that is essentially the purpose of creating the will, because how you dictate how you want your assets to be distributed. It should not be done in any different way than how you would have laid it out in your will. So that's why I'm saying the executor, they would have to go to court and they would have to show proof that this is how, or this is how the assets were distributed to the respective beneficiaries in your will.
Okay,
So it would have to go that way.
Okay, thanks.
Hot topic? No.
Okay, the person who has made a will, if the person has, say, two persons in the will to, let us say, for a property to be shared, certain percentage among the two, what if one of those persons, those beneficiaries, one of those persons died, and the testator, let us say both died in a car accident or so on, will the surviving beneficiary automatically inherit all of the property since that one died?
Okay.
Or what will happen?
Okay, so you say you have, like you said, the testator would leave a gift, or they leave some sort of asset, and they said 50-50 between A and B. So let's say A dies, that's what you're saying. All right, so if A dies, the gift would lapse because that would not be her percentage to collect. But if so the person would not get that 50% because the person would die, A dies, right? All right, so B would have to get the percentage that was allotted in the will. But let's say A has any children or any other surviving relatives, it can go to them under our law. Under our Jamaican law, it can go to any other surviving persons for A. But for B, they can only get the 50% because that is what the testator dictated that they wanted in their will. So the person can't just get the 100% like that. It would have to go through a process. Or you would also have to consult the Administrator General also for some direction as to how we could distribute the 50% that was for A. Because B can't just get the 100% like that, because that was not the way that the testator wanted it to go initially. Narisha?
Okay, there were three things that I flagged when I came in. You were speaking about if you are married, once you get married, if you have a will, you have to destroy that will. What if I have property, assets before I get married, and I would have destroyed that will to make a new will? Would it be prudent for me to use my previous assets to distribute the way that they were distributed in the previous will, and then in the acquiring of new assets during the matrimonial engagement to form part of that estate? Number two, I want to take one first
Okay,
and I do
so
number two.
let me just see if I'm understanding number one question that you have. So you say that you get married, but you had assets before you were married.
Right.
So you had properties, real
Right.
estate, before you were married.
Yes, that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
And those properties would be in your name.
Right?
Okay.
So you're saying that when you become married, you have to make a will. You have to destroy the will that you had before
Right.
and make a new will.
Right.
So I am asking if it would be prudent for me to distribute those assets that I would have had before, how I would have distributed them in the previous will, but making a new will, including the
Matrimony.
acquisition from the new marriage going forward.
Not necessarily. Why they recommend or why is it advised that you create a new will after your marriage is because if you have a matrimonial property that you acquired within the marriage, you would need, that would not go into the will because depending on the type of tenancy that you have, it could be joint tenancy or tenancy in common, but the properties that you had before that are in your name only, you can, after you create the new will, or when you create the new will, you can distribute it the same way you would have done in the old will.
Yeah, that's simple
So
enough,
let's say you
Max.
said you were going to leave it to John Brown in your first will, you can still leave it to John Brown in the new will that you create, because it's not property that is owned with you and your partner.
Okay,
it's just
understood.
your property in your name.
Understood. Next, number 2, you stated that insurance, if you have an insurance policy, you would not put it in the will.
Right.
But what if the insurance policy states that there's no designation apart from it going to your estate? Wouldn't that fall in your will? Because I mean, you'd have had to distribute that policy or the proceeds from that policy in your will to tell how it would go, because it would not be distributed in the policy.
So you're saying that in your policy you did not specify who you wanted it to go? It
is
just
left-
went to your estate?
It is left to your estate.
State.
Yes. So it will be prudent for you to put that in the will, because if you do not do so, then there would be any direction as to how it would be used or should
No,
be.
it still wouldn't be advised to put it in the will. Why it's not advised? Because the executor at the time, when they realize that you have a life insurance and you nominated the estate, the executor should actually go and claim for the insurance proceeds so that it can be used to, I guess, distribute or to help out with whatever arrangements you needed upon your death. But it's
Okay.
not something that should go in the will.
All right,
So even
understood.
if you nominated the estate, you should not still put it, you should not put
Understood.
it in the
Final
will.
question. If your will is not made or created by an attorney, how would you store that will?
All right,
That's the
so it's
final
important that you store it in a secure location, and it's important that somebody knows where to locate it. Because if it's a different thing that you have the will, but if no one knows that you have a will, then that's another problem in itself. So you need to secure it in a location that is known by the executor. The executor would definitely need to know where to store it. So you can store it in a safety cabinet. You can, I know some persons, they store it at the attorney's office. So it's sometimes good if the attorney can have a copy of that will, so that, let's say your house burns down today, unfortunately, at least the attorney will have a copy at their law firm, or they will have it in some storage facilities somewhere. So it's essentially that you have it in a safe location. A fireproof cabinet would be good, or you can keep it with an attorney as well. So it can be in safekeeping. All right, so I think that's all the time we have for questions. If you have any other pressing questions that I did not get to answer here, you can always speak to me on the outside or speak to me at another time, and I'll try my best to see if I can answer that for you. All right, so that will be it. So we'll be moving on to the next presentation. It will be a sensitization on divorce and separation, and this will be done by Brother Saeed Bernard.
All right, thank you, Sister Racine Ware, for that presentation. Very informative. Very informative presentation. Now we'll hear from Brother Saeed Bernard, who will be speaking to us on the matter of divorce. And guess what? Not the biblical divorce, but the realistic divorce. The one, the things that happen that causes divorce nowadays, and what to do, what not to do. Let's hear from Brother Bernard.
And I mean, the good thing about knowing about this is you can tell somebody that you know. It doesn't have to be you. And separation is also a big thing. So, first of all, let me start by saying that you can't just get up and say you're going to get divorced. You will not get divorced, right? It will not happen. You will not be allowed to get divorced. What has to happen is you will have to be separated for at least 12 months. Now, what is separation? Separation is where there is a satisfaction of the court, where you have proven that you have not been in relations with your partner for over 12 months. So you can live in the same house, right, but not in the same room, for example. That can count as separation, right? You can be sharing the same bills. You could still be sharing the bills in the house as you usually do. It will count as separation so long as you are not in the same bedroom, right? So there is that. And you have to be separated for at least 12 months before you can ask for a divorce. Now, what is a divorce? Sometimes we watch some shows and you see where, you have to sign a divorce and he has to sign a divorce. It doesn't happen like that here, right? You simply go to a lawyer because you really can't do the divorce on your own. And probably this is why you should have tried to avoid it Elder T, because it's expensive. So you have to go to your lawyer. Your lawyer will draft a fixed date claim form as the petitioner, man or woman, saying why you need to get divorced. Now, interestingly, you have to satisfy the court on several things, some of which includes you have to show the court that your marriage has irretrievably broken down. So if the court thinks, if the court thinks that it was just a little argument and you're just vexed right now, you're not going to get the divorce. They're going to tell you to go to counseling, remedial sessions, all of that, because the intention of the state and the law is to ensure that you're staying within your marriage, right? Also, it does not matter who started the divorce. It does not matter if it's you do something wrong or him do something wrong. None of that matters in a divorce as long as one partner wants a divorce. So if a partner gets up tomorrow for no reason and just wants a divorce, he can, within his right, or she can, within her right, just apply for the divorce, right? Now, concerning all of that, again, you have to show that your marriage has irretrievably broken down. And Virgin, just to have a lawyer to do that document and file it in the court, you're looking at $150,000. And that is the cheap price. Because the Queen's Counsel might charge you $200, $250. Yes? Now, if the wife or the husband decides to contest the divorce, you're looking at more money. You're looking at billable hours. And so you're looking at probably $10,000 per hour if you're going to contest the divorce. That means your wife and the husband are going to have to go to court. And it gets really messy even if children are involved. Right? Because if children are involved, you have to do a whole different documentation. So all of those things complicate the process rather. And you're looking at least, if it's contested, you're looking at around 2.5 years before you can get a divorce. And if it's not contested, you're looking at around 1 year, if you're lucky, 1 year and 3 months, reasonably, to get a divorce, right? So it's always good to set your accounts in order concerning all of those things. Now, a big part of it is you can come to church, yes, and the marriage officer or whomever does the ceremony, and you kiss, you say, I do, and you're gone home, and you think, yes, we're married now, everything is good and all right. But the reality is there are certain circumstances where either the man or the woman, after being married, you can literally get up and say, no, annul this marriage immediately. And what the country will, or what the court will do is, it will erase your marriage as if it had never happened. It's as if you didn't know each other, right? It will annul the marriage entirely. So, for example, if the marriage is not consummated, meaning if there is not sexual intercourse, then the marriage is not consummated, right? So let me get that clear. If you get married and you don't have sex, the marriage is not consummated, right? It is not plainly in our Matrimonial Causes Act, which deals with the annulity of marriage, but it is something called common law. So what the common law does, so the difference between common law and the statute is that the statute is what Parliament writes and passes. But the common law is basically the experiences of the courts, right, that are basically written in cases. So if you don't have sex after your marriage, it's not consummated. Now that means if the man is impotent, for example, or the woman, for whatever reason, cannot engage in those activities or chooses not to engage in those activities, and you did not know before the marriage, then at that point in time, you're able to go to the court and say, my lord, or my lady, or your honor, the reality is he's impotent, or she does not want to have sex, or cannot have sex, so annul the marriage. And the marriage will be almost immediately annulled. It's as if you're never married. So all if you say, well, I have the ring, whatever, you're not married. Yes? And that's just the reality of it. So that's the common law. But this happens, some things happen a lot in Jamaica as well. So for example, there are some people who separate and then they go and get married to somebody else. That cannot work. You have to divorce in order to marry. The law says you have to be a single man and a single woman. So if you were married before, whether in Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in the world, if you were married before and you come here tomorrow morning and get married and you weren't divorced, and somebody finds out, anybody finds out that you actually weren't divorced, right? The court will literally just tear out your marriage certificate and you're not married. Right? So you have to ensure that you're single. Another thing, if you're married to somebody by fraud, so let's say him say, I am John Paul, I'm an attorney at law, I have money, and you say, yes, I like you, nice Christian man, yes, and give you wrong identity and all of that, and you end up getting married. When you find out that that is not so, he is not who he says he is, then you can go to the court and say, Judge, tear out this certificate. I'm not married. I don't want to be married to this man because who he said he was, he is not. And the court will say, very well, the marriage is annulled, just like that, right? And that is because of reasons by fraud. Another reason is, if it is, right, that somebody is not mentally stable, this is a serious one. Because you have people who are sick, and unfortunately, Jamaicans don't take mental health seriously. But if someone is mentally ill or mentally incapacitated, and you get married to them, and let's say a year after, then finally take the medication, and then finally come back to some semblance of sense, then can go to the court and say, I was mentally incapacitated, so void that, judge. I don't want to be married. Yes? And just like that, your marriage will be torn out of the registry and you're basically not married. So why do we say all of this? Because, Virgin, at the end of the day, there are several people inside of church and outside of church who are separated. Yes? It means you were married and you just separate. You didn't go through any court process for divorce. You didn't get a decree absolute or a decree nisi. You just separated. In truth and in fact, even if you haven't spoken to your husband in 20 years, you're still married. Yes, you're still married. And that means if you go and you're trying to get married to somebody else, it is illegal. It is very much illegal. And when they find out that you get married to somebody else, they will literally just nullify your marriage. So it is not valid at all. So you have to take that into consideration. Also, whilst we don't aim for divorces and all of that, Racine just spoke about your will, your trust, and all of that. A big part of protecting your assets is to ensure that you get a divorce if you need to. And here's why. If you're separated for years, so let's say, God forbid, let me use myself, but I get married, I get separated, God forbid, and I am here working all this money, buying all this real estate and all of that, yes? I'm separated about 25 years now, and I have another girlfriend or whatever. Even when I die, my wife, who is still legally my wife, will get what she ought to get by law. Yes? She will get what she ought to get by law. Even if you write a new will, the law protects the wife. and vice versa. The law also protects the husband. So it goes the other way around as well, right? So these are some things to take into consideration. And again, just to summarize, if you have not consummated your marriage, then your partner can easy go and have the marriage annulled. So once you get married, and you're married by a marriage officer who is licensed in Jamaica, the marriage is valid. But if you don't consummate it, anybody can get up and just go to the court tomorrow, have the judge know, hey, this marriage is not consummated, here is why, and the judge will say, okay, can he go to the doctor? Can she go to the doctor and get cured or healed? Can the situation resolve itself? And then if not, they will say that the marriage is not consummated and it will be deemed null and void. Yes? Those are all the points you wanted me to cover, Elder T. Yes, in the interest of time. All right, so are there any questions? There's a question at the back.
Good evening. Are there any implications to females who are divorced for years but keep their married names?
All right, so if you're divorced for years and you keep your married name, really and truly, by law, you also shouldn't have the name, yes? But the law does not discriminate if you keep the name. So if you're divorced and you end up keeping the name because all your documentation is in the name, it does not matter if you're getting remarried. It just means, though, that you wouldn't have the option of keeping that name when you're getting married again. You have to drop it because it's not your maiden name. And remember, your birth certificate has your maiden name. So you would have to drop the name in the process of being married and changing over the documents. That name has to be dropped, and then you'll take on your new husband's name. So it has no legal implication. It just makes your process a bit longer.
Before I echo to my question, I just want to put something in the mix. There is a very famous, I shouldn't say famous, a very popular Jamaican who, when she got married, she had all her documents in the first husband's name. But then she got divorced and remarried and had to keep the old husband's name and the new husband's name. I don't, maybe most of you know of Dalrymple Filbert as a Speaker of the House. She had that thing where she had to keep her whole old husband's name and the new husband as well. My question is, how do you
just to comment on that part, though, because I did say that you have to drop it in certain instances. What happened with her is all of the documentations that she had, and I believe all the assets that she had as well, when those were litigated through the courts, it really did not make sense for her to drop her name because of the jurisdictional issues and she had assets abroad and all of those things, she would not have been able to access some of those. And so that is a gap somewhat or a gray area. But yes, that was so, yeah.
Yes, how do you define that big term you use, irretrievable breakdown?
Okay.
Can you give us some specifics as to how to identify it and how to really understand it better?
Okay, that's a very good question actually, because there is several case law that speaks to irretrievable breakdown, and a lot of divorces that don't get achieved is because you haven't satisfied the irretrievably broken down of the marriage. So in order to be irretrievably broken down, it is a test that you have to satisfy the court. So first of all, the court will first look at the issue. The court will then say, all right, can this issue be solved? As a matter of fact, brethren, the court has the power, yes, to send you to counseling. The court can say, no, you're going to go counseling for 3 months. Also, if you separate, and let's say you start your separation July 1st, and then August 1st, you ended up sleeping with your husband or your wife, right? Your separation time pauses. Right? It pauses. And if you continue to have good relations with him for another 3 months, your separation time have to start all over again. So the court now looks on that, looks at the pattern and say, okay, is it a case where she separate, come back, or he separates, come back, and it's a back and forth, back and forth. In a case like that, the court is very slow to grant a divorce. They will send it to counseling. As a matter of fact, they will order that the counselor gives the court a report as to whether or not psychologically or, spiritually, you guys, can possibly work out. The court also looks at children. If the court thinks, and this is a major one, if the court thinks that the environment is toxic for the child, and it is best that you go your separate ways for the child's sake, that is the quickest they will grant a divorce. Once a child is involved, and it's not in the best interest of the child, they will grant it very speedily. But irretrievable damage or irretrievable breakdown, it simply means that you have to satisfy the court. And it's a subjective test. You have to satisfy the court, where you say, or you go in court literally and you testify and you say, Your Honor, me and him can't work. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen because, one, we tried 3 times already. We go to counseling. His mother cussed me. The child is back and forth. You show all the reasons, yes, why you cannot. So if you go and say, Your Honor, him cheat upon me, so it done this so. That is not irretrievable breakdown. You have to show the court that you've gone to counseling, that you've tried all you needed to do before the court says, okay, this seems as if there is no chance that they can go forward in matrimonial harmony as husband and wife. And then that is how they grant the divorce. So that is the meaning of irretrievably broken down or breakdown of the marriage. It has to be where there is just no, you just can't see how they will continue. Yes? Interestingly, the first divorce case that I worked on, they were Adventist couples. And one of the things that they used to satisfy the test is to say, listen to me, Your Honor, we got church together, we don't even sit down in church, we don't even talk to each other at church. That was part of what they used to say the marriage has irretrievably broken down. So you use every little thing, right, to show the court that this just not going to work. There's just no way this is going to work. That's it.
All right, someone has a question. Can you please define who is a common law wife?
Very good question. Because a lot of people are common law wives and they don't know. And a lot of people have benefits and they don't know. So you're a common law wife if you're living in the same household with the man for over 5 years. Yes? So once you're living in the same household, so it's not a conjugal relationship. It's not I go over his house one weekend and he comes over mine. No. Once you're living in his house or vice versa, whichever house, once you both are living in the same house, under the same roof, for 5 years or more, you are a common law wife. And essentially, you have all the benefits of a wife, with certain exceptions. You have all the benefits of a wife based on common law and the statute, right? So it's very important to know if you're a common law wife or not, because you do have benefits. Yes, especially if the person dies as well.
So could you go a little further and delve into what makes you common law and what are some of the benefits of the common law union as opposed to the other union?
All right, so essentially a common law union, and this one is very important because a common law wife or husband, but more so it's always a wife. If you have you're in a common law relationship and somebody finally decides to move out after the 5 years, they can go to the court and say, okay, Your Honor, let's split the furniture in half, even if you buy all of it. Yes? They can actually go to the court. So if you're very rich, for example, and your common law wife doesn't work, she always take care of your children and she take care of she's a housewife essentially, but a common law wife. When you guys break up, it's not a divorce. When you break up, she can literally go to the court and say, Your Honor, I am used to this level of life. I'm used to driving a Range Rover. I'm used to going to Angkor to eat lunch with the uptown moms. the judge will say, well, you have to continue that lifestyle. So the rich man now has to pay maintenance to the girl that he just broke up with. So even though it's just a girlfriend, once it passes over the 5 years, under certain circumstances, she has those benefits. Yes? You have to maintain her. Especially, worse if she did not work. Oh my Lord, you will have to spend a lot of money, because then the court says, she built you. That's what they will say. They will say, she took care of your home. She fed your kids. She fed you. She maintained the home. All of that must count for something when you break up. And so you will have to pay a nice maintenance. However, the law has been reformed in such a way that kind of helps men, insofar as we can argue now to say, well, Your Honor, fine, but she needs to go look at work. And then the judge will say, well, fine, we give her probably 4 years to look at work. Yes, you have to give her time to get her work and get on her feet. And even if what she gets is not what she's used to, you might have to pay the difference in maintenance. It's that serious. It's that serious.
Question. What if you have your wife, but you also have a common law wife?
That's a good question, because it happens a lot, actually. And what you find is, I've had cases where people say that I'm the common law wife, even though the man is married. You can't be a common law wife if you're married, because in order to be common law, it has to be a single man and a single woman living together for over 5 years. So if you're married, you can't be common law. You're just, I don't know, a side woman or something. But you're not common law wife. You're not at all. No. You have to be single. Yes? Elder T, you had a question.
A decree NISI versus a decree absolute. Do you have to have an absolute to marry again?
Yes. So the decree NISI is basically what they give you. So the court process, in my opinion, when it comes to divorce, I sometimes put it to what the Bible intended as well. Because the Bible does not intend for you to have divorces, yes? It does not. Spiritually, it does not. And the court process, it draws it out, hoping that you change your mind sometimes. So you get a decree, after all that paperwork, you get what is called a decree nisi. And brethren, when you get the decree nisi, you're still not divorced. You have to wait 6 weeks. They basically give you a 6-week period to see if you're going to change your mind. Yes? You wait 6 weeks, and then after that, you get a decree absolute. And then that is when you're actually divorced. So you have to differentiate between the two. There's a hand right there. Okay, go ahead.
All right, quick question. To just verify, is it that just the women alone benefit from this common law breakup? Don't the men benefit? Like, suppose the woman works and is rich, can the men be like, Judge, we need some money, I'm not working?
So I think I did say it, but I'll say it again. Yes? When it comes to common law, it's both man and woman. Yes, both man and woman. It's just that I find that given our culture, and it's a subjective test, a man is least likely to get maintenance as opposed to a woman. Yes, and that's just the reality. And a judge will more likely give a man less time to find a job than a woman. And again, that all comes down to the fact and the point that it is said, that factually speaking and statistically speaking, it's most times a woman that asks for the maintenance. There are cases where men have asked for the maintenance before, and what they get really can't maintain anything. Yes? So it's just a subjective test that the courts use. And based on our culture, substantially, it is more preferred to women, but on paper, a man is also a common law husband. Look at it this way. In order for there to be a wife, there has to be a husband. In order for there to be a common law wife, there has to be a common law husband. So the same benefits apply.
My question is, if I divorce my husband,
You won't.
can I get alimony from him? Or if he divorced me, is he entitled to any alimony?
Alimony.
Yeah.
Yes and no. And that alimony conversation is more a US thing as opposed to a Jamaican thing. What happens again with that? So the alimony is basically what I was talking about a while ago, maintenance. It's just that one of them is breakup and one of them is divorce, right? What happens with the divorce is you have what is called the Property Rights of Spouses Act. Yes, the Property Rights of Spouses Act. And I'm glad you brought up that question. If a man buys a house while you are married, and his name alone is on the title, woman, you have no need to worry. The law dictates that once there is a divorce and she is your wife, she is entitled to half of the property. The law dictates that. Yes? Once she is your wife, and vice versa. So if the woman buys the house while you're married, she spent all her money on it, and you get a divorce, the law dictates that the house is split 50-50. There are a couple exceptions, right? One of them is if the house was bought before the marriage, like say 2 years before the marriage, then the court will say, well, she bought the house before you were married, so you can't get 50-50. You might can get 20-80, right? Also, if the marriage is of a short period, so let's say you get married 2022, and in 2024 you're getting a divorce, you will not get 50-50. Because the court will say that it's a very short marriage, and so really and truly, it's not equitable to come and split it 50-50. So what happens is, Sister Thompson, because of the Property Rights of Spouses Act, everything would have been split up already. Every single property, so the matrimonial home, commercial property, that's not split 50-50, that is split based on the contribution by each partner to the commercial property. By the time, the law is so meticulous that by the time they go through all of that and split up all the finances and the assets and all of that, there really isn't any money to give because you'd have gotten your share of the estate already by means of the divorce. Yes?
All right, last question in the interest of time.
Okay, what if we should baptize somebody who was living in common law for 5-10 years? So we baptize that person becomes a Christian, and shortly after becoming a Christian, that person married. So the person now married in the church. But the person that they were living in common law decided to say, hey, listen, I am entitled to something. So the person go to court for whatever he or she can get. Does that person has a case there? You understand what I'm saying?
Do they have a case?
Yeah.
So let me just make sure that I'm understanding you, yes?
Yeah.
So somebody is in a common law relationship for 10 years.
Right.
They get baptized.
Right.
Get married to a different person.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then is it immediately as the breakup happened, that person is now saying that they have a right to,
All right, let us put some scenario together. Let us say they have been living in common law relationship for 10 years. We keep a crusade. During the time of the crusade, working with the individual decide to get married, to get baptized. So they say, all right, that relationship cannot exist because they're not baptized. And they decide not to marry to that person that they're in a relationship with. But say 6 months later, or a year, they find somebody in the church and get married. So the person that they were in the common law relationship decide now that they're entitled to something, so they go to court to see what they can get. I'm asking if such person, would have a case.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, frankly speaking. I mean, they being married does not change it. If once you break up, there is some level of entitlement. Now, brethren, I don't want it to, legal advice is never in absolute. Yes, so let me give the disclaimer. Nothing I have said here is in absolute. Because the reality is, all situations are nuanced on their own. So, depending on perhaps how much money one person has as opposed to another, depending on how they spent money together, if they had accounts together and all of that, depending on the nature of their relationship and how they operated over those 10 years, for sure, that person has a case. And I go further even to say, if it is a man that does the breakup and decides to get remarried, and he has money and, you know, the finances, and the woman was a housewife, she most definitely has a right to ask for maintenance. Yeah, she does. Not only maintenance, but she can also ask for some of the things to be split. Yes? So it's also a part of it. And, by the way, if you share children, and this is a very important point, especially in church, if you share children, you can get maintenance for your child. Some people think it's up to 18. No. If your child is going to university, and in other instances, so if the child is disabled, going to university, or for whatever other reason the court thinks fit, you can get child maintenance up until 23. 23. Yes, I think I'm right. 23. Yes. So, again, terms and conditions apply. So, everything what I've said is not absolute. You might see similar cases, but sometimes the answer that I've given might not be the outcome, because small facts can tweak an entire situation, and the law is built on equity. So it believes in fairness, and if it's not fair in that instant, they just won't do it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Brother Bernard, for that presentation. Of course, that is the end of the second segment of our program. At this time, the Harmony Brothers will be blessing us with a special, after which we will hear from our very own Elder Thompson, who will talk to us about planning for our burial.
Check. Okay. Mic check.
I'm gonna keep on working till he comes, till he comes. There's nothing in this world worth turning around to see. My eyes are on the prize, and it's await me by and by. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, I'm gonna keep on working till he comes, till he comes. There's nothing in this world worth turning around to see. My eyes are on the prize, and it's await me by and by. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, there's work to be done, lot of victories to be won. Treasures that we need in the land by the payback sea. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, I'm gonna keep on working till he comes, till he comes. There's nothing in this world worth turning around to see. My eyes are on the prize that's to wait me by and by. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, there's a message to be preached, a lot of souls that have been reached. There's hungry to be fed, little children to be led. There's a river open free, and a soul that's in need. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, I'm gonna keep on working till he comes, till he comes. There's nothing in this world worth turning around to see. My eyes are on the prize that's await me by and by. And I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, I'm gonna keep on working till he comes, till he comes. There's nothing in this world worth turning around to see. My eyes are on the prize that's await me by and by. And I'm gonna keep on working. I'm gonna keep on working. I'm gonna keep on working till he comes. Oh, yeah.
Said, oh wow, what a dynamic group of young men, the Harmony Brothers. Say amen, brethren. Thank you very much, young men. We appreciate your music. Thank Racine and thank Said for their presentations. And we want to spend a little time to remind ourselves of certain things that we can do whilst we are alive to assist in planning our own funeral. You know, people don't like to talk about funeral. So there are certain things that can be done in order to make strategic plans for your loved ones and also for yourself. And one of the things we have learned from COVID is that COVID has taught us that death can strike at any time. Isn't that so? And sometimes they are unfortunate that you have more than one person who have died in a family, so you have two to bury. You think that's an easy thing? It's not financially easy, and it is not emotionally easy either. And so therefore, in order to assist you, in order to take the financial burden from the church, for that is exactly what COVID has taught us too, that the church is not the financial institution which you come to get money to bury your loved ones. No. The church tries to assist in certain ways, but it is not the premier institution to which you come to bury yourself or to bury your loved one. It's not the prerogative of the church, even though the church assists. So we want to recommend, I want to recommend to you that the family indemnity plan is one of the best plans we have around town to assist in providing funds to bury and to take care of expenses for funerals. How it works. The family indemnity plan has 7 different plans, starting from plan A to plan G. And it involves one monthly premium that covers final expenses for you and up to 5 eligible family members. It works like this. Plan A, the monthly premium is $422.40, and your individual benefit is $80,000. And you say $80,000 can't even buy the coffin. So you choose Plan B, where you pay $633,060, and the benefit there is $120,000. Plan C, you pay $792 monthly, and the individual benefit is $150,000. Plan D, we pay $1,320, and the individual benefit goes up to $250,000. Plan E, you pay $2,112, and the individual benefit there is $400,000. Plan F, the monthly premium is $3,432, and the individual benefit is $650,000. And Plan G, the monthly premium is $5,280, and your individual benefit is $1 million. You can choose, as I was saying, one monthly premium covers final expenses for you and up to 5 eligible family members. No medical examination required. You are eligible to receive the full individual benefits per person where valid claims are made. And you get lifetime insurance coverage once you enroll before the age of 76 years. You can get this offer from the credit union, or you can get it from an approved financial institution. Now, the institution which the church is suggesting to you is that the church, through the local conference, sponsors this program. All you need to do is to fill out an enrollment form and pay your first monthly premium. Verification of age and relationship are also required. For example, you need a copy of your birth certificate, passport, and there is a 6-month, this is important, there is a 6-month waiting period from the effective date of your certificate, during which only claims arising from accidental death will be paid. So, CUNA is CUNA Caribbean Insurance, Jamaica Limited. They reserve the right to ask for verification of age and relationship at enrollment for all your family members who will be covered. Remember, one monthly premium covers expenses for you and up to 5 eligible family members, which can cushion the financial expenses in the case of an emergency. You interested? You get in touch with Sister Reed, or you can get in touch with Brother Thompson, and we can give you the relevant forms that you will take up to the East Jamaica Conference personnel, and we can tell you who to go to at the conference office. I think the lady's name is Mrs. Lumsden Lou at the conference office. Any question? Yes, hello.
Who are those eligible family members? Can I put my brother and my sister and my...
All right. to enjoy the coverage under any of these 7 options with the family indemnity plan, your spouse or significant other, or any combination of up to 2 persons from your parent or parents-in-law. These persons must be enrolled before the age of 76. It also covers your children, including dependent children, under your legal guardianship from age 1 through to age 25, and who are not yet married. Children who are permanently disabled are covered for the duration of their lives once they are enrolled before the age of 26 years. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, I am the person making the payments, monthly payments. What happens if I die and the beneficiaries, can they continue with the plan, or is it just cut off?
All right. Somebody from the cluster, from those who can carry on the plan, they get in touch with they provide the relevant death certificate, relevant papers, and you go into the conference and you arrange for the continuation of the plan, and you will be duly advised there.
I want to understand the question that Sister Jones asked. If the person who is making the payment dies, or whoever is making the payment, that person would not be on it automatically.
Go again.
Question.
The person who is making the payment dies.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm asking if that person would be covered under.
Yeah, man, that person would have been covered already.
Right. So
but also, persons who remain on the plan. Somebody from, for example, somebody will have to take up the continuation of that plan.
No, but what I'm looking at, when that person dies, wouldn't somebody claim that?
That benefit would be paid. That benefit would be paid out to.
Right.
Remember, when you fill up the form, you would say on the form who you expect your beneficiary to be.
Right. So the person would claim. So it's like the insurance thing would come to an end.
Yeah, man. The insurance benefit will be paid out to the beneficiary. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so it wouldn't come to an end. I want to get it clear. Well, let's start. Question. Let's do the question.
Yeah.
Person A is take out and is pay the premium, and A dies. So A has say B on it to be the beneficiary. If B claim for it, going to say A dies.
He who?
B, the beneficiary.
Yes.
I'm asking, wouldn't that arrangement come to an end? Because what I'm getting is like B could claim for it and somebody else could still continue to pay.
Well, what happens is that the plan as it was would have fulfilled its role for the person who have died. But the plan itself is not dead.
Okay.
So the plan, you're going to make arrangement for the plan to be continued.
Oh, okay. Okay. Last question. All the persons who are listed on it, you say 5 persons can be listed.
Yes.
All those 5 persons would have to like sign to something. Can you add somebody's name and the person not aware of it?
Well, you can change name on it, but you have to go in and make the relevant paper arrangement to change. For example, suppose you want to remove your mother right? And put somebody else who falls within the relevant persons. You go in and do the paperwork.
No, the question I'm asking, can I put my mother, for argument's sake, name on it, and she's not aware of it?
I don't know if you can do that and she's not aware, because there are certain information which you have to give on the registration of her on the form.
Could possibly answer that question.
Right? But this is something that you can we can check out at the conference office with
I
them.
could possibly answer that question. Yes, you can add your mother to the policy without her knowing.
For those who I have worked with on the plan in the last 10 years or so, I have had no problem in getting the relevant disbursement of funds. And so far, everything has gone quite well. Yes, Debbie?
No, but at the same time, you need to present the person's birth certificate.
That's what I was saying.
How are you going to get it if the person would hide it?
You see, that's what I was saying. The relevant information on the enrollment form would have to be satisfied. So I don't know if you can put somebody's name and don't tell them. But we could inquire more about that.
Elder Berry has a question. He's asking if he could just put a friend on it.
A friend?
Yeah, like a
What
church.
is the relationship of that friend? Because the stipulation is your stipulations in relation to person who you are with. It says your children, including dependent children under your legal guardianship, age 1 to 25, who are not yet married. And it says children who are permanently disabled are covered for the duration. And it also says mother-in-law.
No, I'm
So I
thinking,
don't know about friend.
I'm thinking about there may be some church members who may not be able to afford, and you would want to say you want to open one for that member just in case that they die and would want to assist them with their final, putting away. How can that?
So what you do, you would get the relevant enrollment information for that member, and you would enroll that member, but you would pay for the member. The church has been doing that so far for at least one person that I know. I just want to thank all of us who have participated in the program this evening. We trust that you did learn something. We trust that you can pass the information on. And as I say, if you are interested in the family indemnity plan, you can get in touch with Sister Reed, or you can get in touch with me, and we can, as the young people say, we can set you up on this program.
I have 2 more questions.
Pardon?
2 more questions.
Oh,
3.
2 more questions.
3,
and then
3.
we will have Brother Berry for the Vespers.
This is not really a question, but an encouragement for us who maybe can look inside our congregation and see those persons who may be somewhat not able to afford it, to see how best we can come together to maybe do something on their behalf. That's just in case they have passed away, that we can put them away without putting any kind of pressure or any kind of pressure on the church.
Yes.
So that would be a good thing if we could look at, see what is happening.
That would be a very good.
I have one person in mind, right? That's why I was asking that question.
Yes, I suspect so. That would be a very good incentive and a very good help to the person.
Okay, also a point to note, Elder.
Yes, Elder.
Probably individuals might think, say, we have two siblings, right?
Yes.
I cannot go and take out for my mom and my sister go and take it. We're only one.
Oh, that is so relevant. Thank you, Debbie. You cannot duplicate persons on the plan.
Okay, so my question is, what if the parent, the mother, maybe my mother, you said there's an age limit, 75?
76.
76. Now, what happens if my mother is 76 and I have not started anything for her? What would be the method that I go through now? Is it that I have to do a plan for her? Is she still eligible?
You mean if she's 76 now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, if she's 76 now, she has passed the age for enrollment on that particular plan.
So can I do it on, is there any other way someone can do it?
Well, not on FIP. FIP stop at age 76, right?
Good evening, everyone. Just to add to, well, clarify with what Auntie Debbie just said, you can actually have multiple persons can have the same person on their plan. What will happen is that the person with the higher payout is the one that will make the claim. So say, for example, Yannick and I both have my mother on FIPs. If my plan is for 600,000 and Yannick's is for 1 million, Yannick is the one that will make the claim. I can't claim 600,000 for her as well. So you'll have one payout.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. I have had instances where persons have been on more than one plan and they say that they're not paying out more than. But we can clarify that with the institution.
At the time when I wanted to do it, I wanted to put my mother on it, but they said no because she's already on
it. Right.
So there's no way I can add her.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So I don't know if it has changed.
I don't know that it has changed, but there are instances, there has been instances during my time when persons have had it that way, Debbie, and when you go to get the payout, they say you can't get it. Even though you had been paying, you can't get it because the person is already insured by X, Y, or Z. I want to turn over to the Vespa. I take one more.
What if I take out a plan for someone and the person doesn't know? And the person should pass and I pocket the money?
What if you have taken and the person does not know?
Yes.
But the relevant information has been given at enrollment.
Yes.
With regards to the person.
Yes. And I collect the money. Is the money paid to the funeral home or to me?
Well, over the years that I have done it, I have asked that the money be paid to the funeral home. So I would have to find out who the money would be paid to in that case.
Because what if I'm dishonest and just pocket the money and remain quiet?
Right.
Yes.
So as I say, I have had the money paid to the funeral home. So I can check that out.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your participation in the program, and I will turn over now to Elder Chris Berry for the Vesper service. Thank you, God bless you, and keep you in a real special way.
Good afternoon. As we pause to acknowledge the setting of the sun, we open our Vesper service with hymn 456, My Lord and I. hymn 456, My Lord and I. We'll sing the first two stanzas.
Let's stand. I have a friend so precious, so very dear to me. He loves me with such tender love, he loves so faithfully. I could not live apart from him, I love to feel him nigh. And so we dwell together, my Lord and I. Sometimes I'm faint and weary, he knows that I am weak. And as he bids me lean on him, his help I gladly seek. He leads me in the path of light beneath the sunny sky. And so we walk together, my Lord and I.
Let us pray. Most kind and loving Father, as we come before you once more in this Vesper service, we'd just like to thank you for having been with us from morning until now. I ask that the thought that I will leave with your people will see them good for the week and for weeks to come. We ask that it will have an effect on them and a true understanding also of what you expect from us. Thank you for your mercies and your grace. In your most holy and precious name we pray. Amen. As I pondered of what to leave with you for the coming week, the scripture of Proverbs 21, verses 20 to 21 came to mind. So I'll read it in your hearing. There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. He who follows righteousness and mercy finds life, righteousness, and honor. Now, today was our stewardship day. And usually when we think of stewardship, we more so think about being faithful in terms of monetary gain, in terms of faithfully returning our tithes. And I think I can adequately say that today would have shown us that being a steward, it doesn't only encompass faithfully returning our tithes and offering, but also in every facet of our life. God expects us to be faithful and accountable. So, in being good stewards, we also have to think about how we can hold ourselves accountable in our lives to God. Because there are others who will look on us and expect to see a different kind of conduct from us because we profess ourselves as Christians. And rightly so, Christians should hold themselves to a higher standard because we know we answer to God. And so I would implore you to hold yourself accountable to God and to understand that we cannot hide anything from God. God knows all, sees all, and so it's pointless in trying to hide from him. And there may be things in our lives that we may know is not right, but at the end of the day, God knows, and he will hold everyone accountable. Last week, I embarked on a journey to Blue Mountains with a youth group from church, here from church. And Sabbath, we discussed the parable of the talents. How we know the story. One was given 5, one another 2, and each of them doubled their talents. But the one who was given 1 buried it. And when we discussed it, the one who was given one and buried it, God held him accountable for having hidden his talent. So in life, whatever talents we have, we are to use them to the service of God. Now, talents, as I'm referring to it here, it doesn't necessarily have to be talents in a literal aspect. It could be your car. God would expect you to use your car to his honor and glory as well. How can you do this? You know, you might use it in service to church as others, as well as it will supply you in other aspects of life. But what we as Christians need to remember, that the car or the means of purchasing in that car, it didn't come from us. God blessed us with a job to provide us the means to purchase that car. And so in many aspects of our life, we must always remember that we are held accountable to the highest order, which is God. So as we go through this week, as we interact with our brothers and our sisters, and not only this week, but as we go through life, remember that we are accountable to God and no one else. And that is the most important thing that we need to have in the back of our minds. So as I close, we'll sing the last two verses of the song. O merciful Father, as we go through another untried week, I ask that you'll keep us, your people, safe. You'll help us to recognize that you are God and that you expect so much from us. Help us to want to be accountable to you and to hold ourselves accountable to you. Help us to do it with a happy and generous heart. Thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us in our lives. And as we continue to worship you in spirit and in truth, continue to protect us. Thank you for your mercies and your grace. In your holy and precious name we pray.